$100 bill costs only a few cents to print, yet people are willing to spend years of their lives earning it. Why? Not because the paper is valuable, not because the ink is valuable, but because billions of strangers have agreed to believe the same story. And that raises a far more interesting question. If money is just a story, what is civilization really built on? The strange thing about money is that everyone spends their life chasing it, yet very few people ever stop to ask what it actually is. $100 bill is just paper. A balance in your bank account is just a number. Neither can feed you, protect you, or create anything on their own. And yet entire economies revolve around them. People exchange years of labor for symbols. Companies rise and fall because of symbols. Nations measure their strength through symbols. At first, this seems perfectly normal. We are taught from an early age that money is valuable, so we rarely question it. But value is a curious thing. Gold has value because it is scarce. Food has value because it sustains life. Land has value because it provides shelter and resources. Money is different. Its power does not come from what it is. Its power comes from what people believe about it. And once you begin to see that distinction, a more important question emerges. Perhaps the greatest invention in human history was never money itself. Perhaps it was the invisible force that made money possible in the first place. We often think of money as an economic invention, a tool for buying, selling, saving, and investing. But that perspective misses something far more fundamental. Money did not solve a financial problem. It solved a human problem. For most of human history, cooperation was limited by trust. People could work with family members, close friends, and small tribes because they knew who could be trusted and who could not. But civilizations cannot be built on personal relationships alone. No one knows the farmer who grows their food, the engineer who designed their phone, or the thousands of strangers whose labor supports their daily life. And yet, somehow, billions of people cooperate every day, not because they know each other, but because they trust the same system. Money is not the foundation of that system. Money is simply the mechanism that allows trust to move between strangers. At Mind Over System, we often explore the invisible forces shaping human behavior. To understand money, we first need to understand the problem it was created to solve. Imagine a world without it. If you wanted bread, you had to find someone who not only had bread, but also wanted exactly what you had to offer in return. Trade was possible. Scale was not. The larger a society became, the harder coordination became. Not because people lacked resources, but because they lacked a reliable way to exchange value. A village could run on reputation. A civilization could not. The moment human societies grew beyond small tribes, trust became the bottleneck of progress. People needed a way to cooperate with strangers they would never meet, a way to record value without relying on personal relationships, a way to make exchange predictable. Money solved that problem, not by creating wealth, but by creating a common language of value. For the first time in history, two complete strangers could cooperate without knowing each other, trusting each other, or even speaking the same language. That is why money became one of humanity's greatest inventions. Because civilization was never limited by what people could produce, it was limited by how many people could coordinate. But money did more than make trade easier. It solved a much deeper problem. Before money, value could only move through direct exchange. If you helped someone today, you needed something in return today. If the other person had nothing you wanted, the exchange stopped. Money changed that. For the first time, value could be separated from the transaction itself. You could contribute value now and claim value later. You could help one person and receive something from someone else entirely. A farmer could trade with a carpenter. A carpenter could trade with a merchant. A merchant could trade with a sailor. None of them needed to know each other. They only needed to accept the same token. This was a remarkable breakthrough, because money allowed value to travel across both distance and time. But that creates an even more interesting question. Why would anyone accept a piece of paper, a metal coin, or a number on a screen in exchange for real goods and real labor? The answer is surprisingly simple. Because they believe someone else will accept it tomorrow, and so will the next person, and the person after that. At that moment, the value of money is no longer coming from the object itself. It is coming from a shared agreement surrounding the object. A dollar bill has little value as paper. A bank balance has little value as data. What gives them power is the collective belief that they can be exchanged for value in the future. That is what makes money unique. Gold has properties. Food has utility. Money has trust. And the larger the circle of people sharing that trust, the more powerful the system becomes. And once you understand why money works, you begin to notice a pattern. Money is not the only thing built on collective belief. Nations are. Laws are. Corporations are. None of them exist in the physical sense. You cannot touch a country. You cannot hold a law. You cannot point to a corporation in nature. Yet all of them shape human behavior on a massive scale. Why? Because enough people agree that they are real. Money belongs to the same category. Its power does not come from paper, metal, or digital records. Its power comes from a shared belief that exists across millions of minds at the same time. This may be one of the most important discoveries in understanding civilization. Human societies are not organized primarily by physical objects. They're organized by shared stories. Stories that allow strangers to cooperate, coordinate, and pursue common goals. Money happens to be one of the most successful stories ever created. Not because it is true, not because it is false, but because enough people believe in it for it to work. And that reveals something deeper than money itself. Civilization was never built on wealth. It was built on trust. Money is simply the system we invented to store it. History offers countless examples of this principle in action. Whenever trust expands, economies expand with it. Trade grows. Investment grows. Cooperation grows. But whenever trust breaks down, money quickly reveals what it really is. During periods of hyperinflation, people do not suddenly forget how to work, farm, build, or produce. The factories remain. The roads remain. The skills remain. What disappears is confidence in the system itself. The same pattern appears during bank runs. A bank can appear stable for years, then collapse within days once enough people stop believing it will remain stable. In both cases, the underlying lesson is the same. The crisis is never purely financial. It is psychological before it becomes economic. Because money does not derive its strength from paper, coins, or digital records. It derives its strength from the collective confidence that those symbols will continue to be accepted tomorrow. When that confidence grows, civilization becomes more productive. When it disappears, even the strongest systems begin to fracture. Tomorrow morning, Imagine walking into your favorite coffee shop. You order a cup of coffee. You tap your phone against a payment terminal. A few seconds later, the transaction is complete. The entire experience feels ordinary, almost invisible. But look closer. The coffee beans may have been grown by a farmer you've never met, transported by workers you've never met, roasted by a company you've never visited, delivered by people you've never heard of. The payment travels through networks operated by strangers. The electricity powering the cafe comes from infrastructure built by strangers. Even the phone in your hand is the result of thousands of people cooperating across continents. And yet none of these people know you. None of them need to trust you personally. The transaction succeeds because everyone involved trusts the same system. A small purchase that takes only seconds is actually the final step in a chain of cooperation connecting countless strangers across the world. We often look at money and see a payment. What we are really seeing is trust moving through a civilization. The deeper implication is that money is not an exception. It is a pattern. Once societies became too large for personal trust, humans began building systems that could scale trust beyond individual relationships. Money was one of them, but it was not the only one. Every modern institution operates on the same principle. A contract works because people believe it will be enforced. A corporation works because people believe it will continue to exist tomorrow. A government works because people believe its authority is legitimate. Even a nation's borders exist largely because enough people agree that they do. Strip away the shared belief, and the physical structures remain. The buildings remain. The documents remain. The computers remain. But the system itself begins to lose its meaning. This is what makes human civilization unique. Most species cooperate through instinct. Humans cooperate through imagination. We create invisible frameworks, agree to treat them as real, and then organize our behavior around them. Money is one of the clearest examples of this phenomenon, not because it is made of paper, but because it demonstrates how powerful a shared belief can become when millions of people participate in it simultaneously. In that sense, the true engine of civilization has never been money, technology, or even resources. It has been our ability to coordinate around ideas that exist only in the collective mind. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about money is that it reveals something fundamental about human nature. We often think civilization is built from physical things: roads, factories, buildings, machines. But physical infrastructure is only the visible layer. Beneath it lies something far less tangible, a network of shared beliefs that allows millions of strangers to act as if they are part of the same system. Money makes this invisible layer easier to see, because unlike a road or a building, money has very little value on its own. Its power comes almost entirely from collective agreement, and that may be the deeper lesson hidden inside it. Human civilization is not merely a collection of resources. It is a collection of shared realities. The moment enough people believe in the same idea, that idea begins to shape behavior. And once it shapes behavior, it begins to shape the world itself. Money is one of the clearest examples of that process. So where does money come from? At one level, it comes from the systems we create to facilitate exchange. But at a deeper level, it comes from something far more fundamental: trust. The trust that a promise made today will still matter tomorrow. The trust that value can move between strangers. The trust that millions of people will continue participating in the same shared reality. Money did not create that trust. It merely gave it a form, a way to store it, a way to transfer it, a way to scale it beyond the limits of personal relationships. And perhaps that is why money became one of humanity's most important inventions. Not because it created wealth, but because it allowed trust to travel. We began with a question about money, but the deeper answer was never economic. It was human, because the defining feature of our species is not intelligence, strength, or technology. It is the ability to turn shared beliefs into shared realities. Money just happens to be one of the most successful examples ever created.